All right. Good morning, everybody. Do we have we started, Tori?
Okay, now it started. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Do we have, oh, there we go. I see already some participants are joining in. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hope everybody's doing well,
Is it only Tuesday?
right? That's a good question. Yes, it is
Oh
Tuesday.
my goodness.
So trade on Tuesday. So that was a little bit of when we were choosing the day when we want to do these. We thought a lot of news coming out on Monday, but to be honest, I don't know if there is any pattern to it. So,
No, it's all at a whim. So,
yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Put in the chat where you're joining us from, Colorado or some other states. I know the geography now of people joining us is very wide. Virginia, yeah, fantastic. That's good. Albuquerque, there. I knew that. I know there are some other World Trade Centers as well that are joining us. That for those who don't know, there are actually 320 World Trade Centers around the world. Actually, here's a quick quiz before we start. Um, okay, the question is in how many countries do we have World Trade Centers? Can you guess? So there are 320 centers total. But in how many countries? Put in the chat. Oh, Colorado, I see a lot of Colorado. 200. Okay, Susan, almost close. Let me say it this way. Okay, anybody else? Susan, it's so good to see you. Any other guesses? So we are actually in 100 countries. So, yeah, that was not very close. Well, um, okay. And actually, I was planning on sharing the screen and I wasn't sharing. So let me just do that.
I agree. See, I agree there. That's funny.
Right. Um, Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World Trade Center Denver trade briefing. My name is Tanya Arndt, and I'm a director of programs here at World Trade Center Denver. We're so thrilled to launch this series to provide timely insights on global trade policy, key trends, and best practices. For those of you who are new to World Trade Center Denver, our mission is to help businesses navigate the complexity of international trade through education, connections, and resources. The main goal of these briefings is to inform and offer a variety of perspectives from different trade professionals, industries, and angles so that we all can make better decisions and stay prepared in a fast-changing trade landscape. These sessions are recorded and the recordings will be sent out shortly after each briefing. So don't worry if you miss anything or you have to drop off. The format is 30 to 45 minutes of briefing and then followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. So feel free to add your questions to the Q&A box. So we are encouraging you to register for the next one, and the next one will be on March 18th. So here you see we're getting close to the first 4 briefings. Also share them with your colleagues and some other trade professionals as well, so that all of us can stay informed. Couple of housekeeping notes. This session is set up as a webinar. And there are 2 ways to engage. One, using the chat, which you already have been using. And the second one is submit your questions so Kate and I can look through them and address them at the end of the briefing. And let me now introduce our today's speaker, Kate Rayer, Vice President of Regulatory Services at Green Worldwide. Kate is a seasoned licensed customs broker with over 20 years of experience in trade compliance and logistics. As the leader of Green's Global Trade Solutions Division, she oversees 3PLs, FTZ services, and managed services for both manufacturing and distribution FTZs. Additionally, Kate heads Green's duty drawback, advisory, and enterprise customs services. With a strong passion for helping clients navigate complex regulations, Kate is committed to reducing regulatory risks, optimizing supply chain efficiencies, and mitigating duty exposure. Kate is also part of several strategic committees, including the World Trade Center Trade Policy Committee and the National Association of Foreign Trade Zones Trade and Tariff Rapid Response Team. Kate, take it away. So happy that you agreed to do the trade briefing today. I'm going to
Thank you,
stop
Tanya.
sharing.
All right, thanks,
Yeah.
Tanya. I really appreciate the intro. I'm gonna start sharing here. I think it's a little tough to call these a briefing with what's going on because there is absolutely a ton to cover. The news has been changing rapidly, as everybody has seen. What I hope to do today is give you the perspective from the customs broker side of how all of these tariff shifts and all of the changes impact entry process, how to calculate the tariffs, how they work, and provide you with an update on the tariff action summaries that have happened, what we expect to happen, what's happening with the retaliatory measures globally. And then I want to get into some of the specialized trade programs that companies are looking to understand how to potentially use those to really strategize their supply chain and see if there's any opportunity to mitigate tariffs. So with that, I am going to get into the tariff action summary. Um, I think looking at this in a table format is helpful to just wrap your brain around what's going on. So on the top here in the light gray color, these are actions that have been officially announced. The ones on the bottom in the darker gray color are the ones that are potential future actions. And just starting at the top, there has been some additional tariffs, as you guys have probably seen, on products of China and Hong Kong. These originally were going to be a 10% tariff that was announced back in February, which has now been changed to a 20% tariff as of early March. Actually March 4th here. So one important note about this is that this is about products from, not products shipped from. Products of, products from, however you want to call it, is very important when determining how these tariffs apply. So this is based on the country of origin of the product, not where it's shipped from. So as an example, say you have, a product that was made in China, but you're shipping it from, say, another company in Vietnam. Well, in that case, that tariff does still apply. Again, these tariffs are now 20% as of March 4th. This is in addition to all of the Section 301 tariff actions that have been going on since 2018. So these tariffs do stack. So it's potentially, you would have your IEEPA tariff, you would have your Section 301 tariff, and your general rate of duty. And getting into Canada, Canada has been in the news a lot this week. And this is the reason why I highlighted this guy red this morning. I did a similar webinar yesterday and all of this stuff was confirmed. And then I came in this morning and everything has changed again. So if you haven't seen the news this morning, there have been threats to raise certain tariffs from Canada for products of Canada. So we'll see when the official notices come out. Right now, this is all just based on, social media. So again, until it's in a federal register notice, it's more hearsay than confirmed. But it has been threatened that these tariffs could change. So as of now, because nothing new officially confirmed, the tariffs for products of Canada are 25% unless they qualify for USMCA preference. And I'll talk about that more as well. Additionally, the auto tariffs are paused until April 2nd. What's interesting about this is that when the executive orders came out, they did not necessarily list, when this exemption would apply or would end for USMCA qualified products or for autos. But, what has been said is that it will be until April 2nd. And that April 2nd date is really important. That April 2nd date is when, they're saying that these exemptions will expire, but it's also the date that Trump has come out saying that the reciprocal tariffs will be announced. So that April 2nd date is definitely one to keep an eye on. Now with Mexico, it's the same story. As of March 4th, 25% tariffs apply to products of Mexico that do not qualify for USMCA preference and autos. Similar story here. They say that this is going to end April 2nd, but there was nothing official in the executive order for this. Globally, Section 232 tariffs, right now, these apply to steel and aluminum products. This is a global tariff. So this is not necessarily based on the country of origin, it's based on the tariff classification. So these tariffs, have been announced at 25% for both steel and aluminum, including derivative products. I'm going to touch on derivative products a little bit more in detail because there's important caveats there to discuss. But the original steel tariffs were 25%, so those have been kept the same. And aluminum was originally 10%, and that's now raised to 25%. Globally, there has been this whole talk of reciprocal tariffs. Again, this important date is going to be April 2nd as to when they have said that they will announce these. Right now, we do not know what this is going to look like. In the president's address to Congress, he again mentioned this is coming on April 2nd. So this is going to be one that we definitely need to keep an eye on, excuse me. I would say that there are some clues as to how this will roll out, but again, until it's official, it's hard to say. Additionally, there is Section 232 tariffs that are being considered globally for other products outside of steel and aluminum. These are going to be copper, pharma, auto, semiconductors, lumber, timber, derivatives. Again, we don't know exactly what this is going to look like yet. We don't know the amounts officially yet, but we do expect that we'll see something later this year on the global tariffs for those products. So I do like to cover, what is the difference between all of these tariffs? What is Section 301? What is Section 232? What are anti-dumping, countervailing duties? What is the difference between all of this? So Section 301, what it does is it provides the USTR with a wide authority to investigate trading partners for unfair trade practices. And then it allows them to impose tariffs to try to deal with those issues. So you probably are familiar, but the Section 301 tariffs on products of China, those were imposed starting in 2018, and those do remain in place today. Again, what this all means is that because these are different tariff actions, these all apply in addition to each other. So if you have products that are subject to Section 301, and now you have products that are subject to IEEPA or Section 232, all of these tariffs stack on top of each other, okay? Section 232 is different. What it does is it affords the president the power to impose tariffs on critical products like aluminum, steel, and now those other products that I just mentioned, like the copper. Anti-dumping, countervailing, safeguards, what those do is those allow the president to protect U.S. industries from subsidization or below-cost imports. We have been seeing a lot more action on these, and these are generally more product-specific type of actions. IEEPA is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This was passed in 1977, and what it does is it grants the president a broad authority over economic transactions and a wide range of abilities to deal with any unusual or extraordinary threats. So what the president has cited here is the opioid crisis. To help deal with that issue, he's now using tariff actions. Historically, IEEPA has not been used this way. IEEPA is not generally used to impose tariffs until now, but rather it has been used to do sanctions and other type of actions to deal with those problems. What IEPA is doing is it's most resembling Section 232 in the way it is applied. And like Section 232 tariffs, it does have limitations on the ability to mitigate tariffs using other trade programs. I'll talk about that more, but there are carve-outs for IEPA specifically related to de minimis. There are carve-outs for drawback, and we will get into that more. So again, getting into IEPA and how this is exactly implemented. So again, these apply in addition to existing tariffs, including your general duty rate. So I'll give you an example. If you have a product of China that is importing into the US, say you have a general duty rate of 5%, you have a Section 301 rate of 25%, and now you have an IEPA tariff of 20%. So your total rate for that import would be 50% on your transaction value. Or if you're using a different, approved evaluation method, it would be 50% of the value declared to customs. Say you have the same product, but it's a product of Hong Kong. Section 301 doesn't apply to Hong Kong right now. So there wouldn't be any Section 301. However, IEPA tariffs would still apply. So in that case, your total would be 25%. So it would be the 5% for the general duty rate and 20% for IEPA. Mexico and Canada, they're following the same type of calculation. So say you have a product of Canada or Mexico that does not qualify for USMCA preference, you would pay your general rate of duty in addition to any other punitive tariffs, such as your Section 232 tariffs and your new IEPA tariffs. Okay, so these again all stack on top of each other. Again, the first effective date for the China and Hong Kong IEPA tariffs was back in February 4th. Those rates are now raised as of March 4th to 20%. And the speed of which these were implemented, this was much faster than past tariffs that were implemented under Section 301 and Section 232. And it's because of how they were implemented under the IEPA framework rather than the Section 301 or Section 232. So originally, when the IEPA tariffs were announced, there was a carve out for in-transit exceptions. With the raising of the rates to the 20% and then the Mexico and the Canada, the similar language was not included in these orders. So no in-transit exemptions are available. And de minimis, there's been a lot of back and forth on de minimis and what de minimis is. This is for shipments that are valued at under $800. Those are used for shipments that are really in the e-com space, low value products. Those are under de minimis procedures or Section 321 procedures. And what those do is allow a much simplified entry process. And originally, under the IEPA orders back in February, de minimis was very abruptly halted and saying that you cannot use de minimis anymore for any shipments that are subject to IEPA tariffs. Now, there was some, I think some lobbying or whatever you want to call it from a lot of the major courier type of companies that said, hey, this is not practical. We need time to implement a system for this. Customs needs time to have a framework built to really accept and collect all these duties. So this was paused. Saying that, as soon as the systems are ready to go, that the de minimis would not be allowable again. So keep an eye on this one if you do have products that are going to be that are using de minimis now that may not be in the future. So again, I do expect that we'll see news on this somewhat soon, but the dates are not available. So also, like I mentioned, the news has been really shifting a lot on this. I think we all have tariff fatigue, for lack of a better way of saying it, news fatigue. Especially, again, this morning, everything changed again for Canada. So keep an eye on the news. Really, really make sure that if you do have products that are subject, that you watch for the official notices. Because again, as of right now, these are just threats. And until they're officially implemented, these are the rates that are in play today. I do want to touch on USMCA qualification because there is this carve out right now for the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. This is very important because this is getting a lot of attention. It can potentially be a way to compliantly not pay for the 25% duties from Canada and Mexico. To do this, currently, again, this might change. Your product needs to be qualified for USMCA and declared on a customs entry. And just because you are importing products of Canada and Mexico, this does not mean that the products qualify for USMCA. There are steps that you have to take to make sure that the product qualifies. And again, because this is a carve out and an exception, allowing for that 25% to not be applicable, we do expect that we're going to see additional enforcement, additional questions to make sure that USMCA claims are made correctly. So steps you need to take to determine if your product is qualifying for USMCA is to take a look at your current HTS classifications. Um, in the tariff schedule under the rates of duty section, there's going to be an S code, like S like Sam, that's going to be under the special rates of duty column. Okay. If you see an S in that column, that means that USMCA preference is potentially available to you. Okay. If you do not see the S, that means that that tariff classification is not currently USMCA qualifying. So if you do see the S, you need to then check and make sure that the merchandise can qualify under the USMCA rules of origin. I recommend that you start with your suppliers. So if you're purchasing products from Canada or Mexico, work with them as they may have already done this effort. I will say that there's a lot of companies that I talk to that have not been claiming USMCA, even if they're eligible to do so. And the reason for that is because, say, their general rate of duty is very low, they don't bother. If their general rate of duty is free or even 1%, 2%, whatever it is, they don't bother going through the USMCA qualification process if the ROI isn't there to go through this effort. But now, right, say you have a general rate of duty that's 0%, but if you claim USMCA, you could potentially not pay the 25%. That becomes much more worth it to look at. So again, start with your suppliers, start with the producers of your products in either Canada or Mexico, and they may have already completed the qualification, or they can do so quickly. And then they could provide you with the certification or a certificate of origin to claim that trade preference. So if they haven't done that work, it's time to do some work on that and make sure that the qualification steps are completed before you claim it. To start to do this analysis, you'll need to understand more information about the product. Was it entirely made in USMCA countries of USMCA origin raw materials? Do you have inputs from countries outside of USMCA countries? If so, you're really going to need to understand the bills of material that go into the product, understand the values of the inputs, the origins of the input, and their tariff classification. Because again, all of these determine whether or not you can qualify for USMCA preference. To understand the rules of origin for this, you want to see General Note 11 in the tariff schedule. In there, you're going to find the HTS specific rules, and they do vary depending on the product. So it's very important that you go look these up. But in order to make sure that your product qualifies, check the HTS specific rules and follow the steps. A lot of times what it is it's what's called a tariff shift. So do your raw materials have, say, chapter 22 as an example, and your finished product is in 25? Well, that may qualify you for a tariff shift. But again, the rules are HTS specific. So as you're going through the process of determining whether or not your products qualify for USMCA, double check those rules and make sure you understand the inputs to make sure that your products qualify. So if you do determine that the products are qualifying for USMCA and you want to file for that preference on a customs entry, number one, make sure you communicate this to your customs broker so that they can file the entry appropriately. And make sure you have good records of this. You want to make sure you document how you did the calculation. That way, when CBP needs proof, you're ready to provide that to them to substantiate that claim. And again, This is becoming more of a hot topic right now. So you're likely to see a lot more USMCA claims, a lot more companies trying to figure all this out. You can always work with trade professionals or trade attorneys, customs attorneys for assistance on this. But again, just as a word of caution, make sure you have your ducks in a row to make sure your products qualify for USMCA before claiming that preference. Okay, getting into the Section 232. So all of the tariffs that we have been discussing have been around IEEPA. These again are across the board tariffs on certain countries. Section 232 tariffs are different in that they apply globally right now. So it's not the products of consideration. These are applied based on certain HTS classifications of products. For some history on this, Section 232 related to steel and aluminum. This has been around since 2018. Originally, the Section 232 was 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum. The US then imposed some tariff rate quotas on these products to allow a certain volume of these products into the US. And then there were additional products added as derivatives back in 2020. However, there were certain exception carve-outs for certain countries that were put into place. The agreements that had suspended the Section 232 tariffs on imports from these certain countries, they will be terminated as of tomorrow. Accordingly, all of the existing generally approved exclusions from these tariffs are also terminated as of tomorrow. And of course, because there's no product exclusions available anymore, the process for doing so is also being terminated. The new tariffs on steel and aluminum, they go into effect this week. They go into effect tomorrow, actually. So the steel tariffs again remain at 25%. Aluminum is increasing to 25% from 10. And additionally, what they have done is added in additional derivative products in both categories. For the derivative products, the additional 25% tariffs, these will be going live tomorrow if the derivative products are classified in the general steel and aluminum chapter. So those are chapter 73 and 76. So what's important here is understanding, number one, do you have products that are on the new list? Do you have products that are included on the Section 232 annexes? These are included in the Federal Register notices. So go take a look at those, because if you do, what that means is that the 232 tariffs will apply to your products. Excuse me. So again, this is effective tomorrow. The 232 tariffs do apply in addition to other tariffs. So if you have Section 301, Section 232 applies in addition. If you have Section 301, IEEPA, and 232, they all stack on top of each other. And again, what's really important here is these are HTS specific. Okay, so if you have products that are included in the list, this means that these tariffs apply to you. Okay. So again, Federal Register notice is the important place to check here. Bounce this off of your current product database where you maintain your product classifications if you're an importer. And this will help you know if you do have Section 232 tariffs to analyze and figure out. There's two different categories here regarding derivatives. Okay, so derivative products, the two categories are the ones that are classified in Chapter 73 and 76, and the ones that are classified outside of Chapter 73 and 76. And the difference here is that if they're classified in Chapter 73 or 76, the 25% tariff for steel and aluminum applies to the full value of the product. If the derivative product is classified outside of Chapter 73 and 76, which there's a variety of different chapters that are included now, those tariffs only apply to the amount of steel or aluminum that is contained in said product. And why that's important is because customs is going to be needing information related to the value of the aluminum or steel that's contained in those products. And I've been getting a lot of questions about this because a lot of companies are like, hey, we don't have that information. We don't know exactly how much steel or exactly how much aluminum is contained in my skis or tennis rackets or whatever else is included on that list. And now is the time to start working on it. Because how this is going to work is if you do not know the value of the steel or aluminum that is contained in your derivative products, again, classified outside of Chapter 73 or 76, what this means is that the tariff will apply to the value of the full product rather than just the derivative amount. So this is really important information to start working on gathering. If you don't have it, start working with your suppliers because, again, your customs broker is going to need it to properly calculate the tariff. So some steps to take, again, conduct a risk of the annex tariffs against your product databases, see if they're included. And again, proper tariff classification here is very important. Evaluate your supply chain for products classified outside of Chapter 73 and 76. This is where your steel and your aluminum content valuation will be required. If you do have products that are made of US melted and poured steel or US smelted and cast aluminum, there is a potential to qualify for an exemption for this. So understanding the origin of your steel and aluminum is also very important because you're going to be able to, again, qualify for an exemption if you can prove this. I would say start assessing, potential mitigation strategies. Unfortunately, because this is global, there's not a whole lot you can do as far as changing the sourcing of the products other than moving to US sourcing, which is, ultimately the principle of this. So other things you could look at is tariff engineering. Again, this is something that if you do compliantly can be a way for you to compliantly change your tariff classification if you modify something about the product. Again, I definitely recommend getting assistance with this type of endeavor, but those are potential mitigation strategies. And again, CBP has been authorized and directed to publish regulations and guidance in implementing this as soon as practical. Until this guidance is officially announced, you guys as the importers, if you are an importer, the methodologies for the valuation need to be determined by you. It is potential that CBP will come out with, official guidance on this, and we hope so. But again, we're still pending that information. Okay, moving on to retaliatory measures here. So there has been some retaliatory measures that we started to see back in February. China retaliated shortly after these tariffs were put into place. Based on that first 10%, they added 15% on US exports of coal, liquefied natural gas, and 10% on crude oil, ag machinery, large engine cars. They also announced export controls on elements critical to high-tech products. They added in some new export controls. They also placed US companies on their unreliable entities list. They announced an investigation into Google under antitrust laws. And then on March 4th, after our tariffs were increased to 20% for IEEPA, China added additional tariffs of 15% on a wide array of different US farm exports. They expanded the number of US companies subject to US export controls and restrictions to over 20. The top impacted products here by the new retaliatory tariffs are soybeans, meat, poultry, cotton, sorghum, fish, and shellfish. Again, time will tell how this changes based on any other escalations, but as of now, that's where we're at. Mexico, interestingly, they have not announced any formal countermeasures, including tariffs on the United States. Originally last week, there was supposed to be an announcement on Sunday. And I think because of the pause for USMCA qualifying products in the US, they have delayed formalizing any countermeasures, hoping for, a positive outcome to these negotiations. Canada is a whole other story. So they announced retaliatory actions in the form of tariffs on US imports into Canada. So they're targeting US origin products such as beer, wine, bourbon, a variety of other products, and now electricity. So that one just came out and went effective on Monday. This has caused some additional retaliatory actions being announced by our administration. So again, this is all news as of this morning. So keep an eye on it. We'll see if any of this becomes official. But what he has said is that he is going to raise the Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50%. But again, this is just social media talking. This is not official yet. So getting into the fair and reciprocal plan on trade. So on February 13th, the administration, they issued a memorandum, and this ordered the development of a comprehensive plan for restoring fairness on U.S. trade relationships and countering non-reciprocal trading arrangements. They did this citing the economic and national security threat posed by the trade deficit. This was all outlined in the America First trade policy. So the plan, what it's trying to do is it's trying to counter arrangement that the U.S. considers non-reciprocal. And importantly, the memo, what it does is it calls out that all trading partners are going to be evaluated, friend or foe. We're seeing that with Canada and Mexico, and there's potential for us to see some with the EU. Everybody is being evaluated for potential tariffs and other actions. So the USTR is currently reviewing the impacts of foreign tariffs, taxes, other non-tariff trade barriers, including exchange rates, VATs, digital service tax, all to the US economy and how that impacts trade. These reports are being put together very quickly. So these are all due soon, and we expect that the new reciprocal tariffs could be announced as early as April 2nd. Again, that date keeps coming up. But again, as mentioned in the president's address, we don't know yet. He says everything is being evaluated. So we're assuming at this point that this could be, the across the board tariff that he's mentioned. And we believe that based on this could be in addition to the existing tariff actions. But again, until this is official, this is all hypothetical. Some key areas were highlighted in the fact sheet that accompanied the memorandum. So one, the European Union included automotive and shellfish. Brazil included ethanol. Canada and France, the DST. India, ag and motorcycles. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean anything is going to happen, but these direct references may indicate a potential target for tariff measures. But again, we have to wait and see. I have been getting a lot of questions about EU. There's a lot of companies that would be greatly impacted if there were to be tariffs on the EU. We have heard that there's threats of 25%, but again, nothing has been confirmed at this time. So April 2nd is going to be a really interesting day for us all in trade and importers who are affected by this. Today, and I'm sorry, I didn't update this slide yet, but the public comment period, there is one open that is the deadline of today. Okay, so there is a public comment period. The USTR is opened. This is the first opportunity for the public to comment on proposed tariffs. So if you do have comments and want to get them heard, I would recommend you go do so today. What they are requesting in here is that that companies or individuals are assisting USTR and recommending appropriate actions to deal with issues of non-reciprocal trade. So they're requesting an outline of the foreign country, trade arrangements, operations of the trade arrangements, and to quantify that in US dollars. Interestingly enough, I was checking the comment portal for this on Friday, and there wasn't a whole lot of comments. So interesting to see. Maybe it's just not widely known at this point, but again, the deadline is today. On the bottom right here, I did put the link to that. If you go to that link, you will find that there is a comment portal, again, public information. But if you feel the need and want to go get your voice heard, this is a good opportunity. Other trade policy updates, USTR is considering additional fees for Chinese vessels. This one also has a comment period open, but this one is open for a little bit longer. This one goes to March 24th. So under this proposal, vessels constructed in China would face fees of up to $1.5 million per port call. Vessel operators with even one Chinese-built ship in their fleet could be charged about $500,000 per call. And Chinese shipping companies like Costco would incur $1 million per call for any vessel, regardless of origin. So this is kind of crazy. This one I think has been kind of flying under the radar, but again, there is a public comment portal. You can go put your comments in if you have them. I do see this as an aggressive escalation to the U.S. trade relations with China. This could potentially be seen as an opportunity for Canadian ports because this could be potentially a way to get out of this if this does happen. However, if it does, this does obviously lead to higher costs for US importers and consumers. So again, same on this one. If you want to go put your comment in the public portal, it is at the same link as I provided on the previous slide. On Friday, there was only about 20 comments on this, which is also to me quite interesting. Okay, so spending a little bit of time on just mitigation strategies. So related to foreign trade zones, if you do have merchandise that is going to be admitted into a foreign trade zone, if this merchandise is subject to IEEPA tariff, Section 232 tariffs, or any other of the tariff actions, and it is foreign merchandise that has not yet entered into US commerce, it has to be admitted in what's called privileged foreign status. What privileged foreign status means is that the rate of duty and applicable tariff is set at the time of admission, not at the time of entry into commerce. So for an example, if you have merchandise that's subject to IEEPA tariffs, when you put your goods into a zone or admit them into a zone, it would be subject to all of those tariffs at the time you take it out. The benefit here is that if you have merchandise subject to these tariffs and you want to export the merchandise, you can do so without paying the tariffs. So I consider this kind of a parallel similar benefit to bonded warehousing. But again, this can be used for ways to mitigate these tariffs if you do so in a strategic way. If you do have existing merchandise in a foreign trade zone that may become subject to a tariff, so say merchandise that might be affected by tariffs that are coming into play in April, there may be some strategies you could look at to lock the duty rate and the tariff rate before those go into place. So again, I recommend if you do operate a foreign trade zone or are looking to put existing inventory or inventory into a foreign trade zone, that you do so carefully. So get some advice on this if you need it as to how this could potentially help your business mitigate some tariffs. And then getting into bonded warehousing, similar benefit to foreign trade zones. However, there is one key difference. Bonded warehousing, the rate of duty and tariff is set at the time of removal into US commerce. Same benefit as FTZ though. If you do choose to export in bond from the bonded warehouse, you can do so without paying duty and tariff. The key being, again, with both programs that you do have to do that in bond to the port of export. Where this could potentially be used is to say you want to store merchandise in a bonded warehouse and kind of play the wait and see tactic to see that, you know, maybe these tariffs will be lifted. If you do that and that happens, then great. You can put that merchandise in at the rate of duty and tariff at the time you remove them. So again, these programs are both great for different businesses and different strategies for how you might want to potentially look at this. And if you need assistance on this, definitely consult a trade professional. Duty drawback is a little bit interesting as well. This was carved out of the rules for IEEPA tariffs, Section 232 tariffs. But interestingly, Section 301 tariffs are allowable under duty drawback is allowable for Section 301, but it is not allowable for 232 or IEEPA tariffs. I've been getting a question a lot. Well, if I have products that are subject to these tariffs, can I still file duty drawback in general? And the answer to that question is yes. However, you can only get back as a refund products that are the tariff lines that are eligible. So say you have a product that is imported that is going to be general rate of duty, Section 301 tariff, IEEPA tariff. Well, you can file drawback on your general rate of duty and your 301, but you just can't file the drawback on the additional tariffs that are ineligible. So again, duty drawback is a great program if you are importing and exporting from the US to explore to see if this is potentially something that you could get some refunds on your duty and tax. Okay, I'm going to get into some practical advice. I only have a few slides on this that I just want to cover very quickly as I know we're running short on time. But again, what I recommend here is map your supply chain. Understand not only, you know, what you're importing, but also what you're domestically purchasing to understand the impact of this. I think it's very important to analyze the landed cost for how these tariffs are going to impact your products. And then see if you can work with any of your suppliers to understand if there are other options that might help you. I know a lot of times that's not the case. You can only get certain products in certain countries, but it's good to understand what those options are. Work with your customs brokers to make sure your entries are correct. Auditing these for the correct tariff application is critical. You want to make sure that the entries are filed in a way that is only where you're only paying what you need to. As I've mentioned several times, these tariffs are based on tariff classification and they are based on country of origin. So making sure that those are correct is very important to make sure that your entries are correct. So spend the time, do the due diligence to make sure that both of those items are solid. I always recommend as well, gather and analyze your data, have your documents, do your record keeping as the importer of record. You can get data on your customs entries from your brokers. You can get data on your customs entries from the ACE portal, which is customs system, where you can go in and pull out all the information on your imports. This is really good for doing analysis on, how these tariffs are going to impact. You can go in and say, historically, I paid this. Based on these changes, I'm going to pay this. And the other thing I like to mention is your customs bond. So your customs bond tends to be kind of one of those things that you have, and you just, kind of leave it and forget it. With all these tariffs, important to remember that your customs bond needs to be for a minimum of 10% of your annual duties and taxes. Okay, so with all of this spend increase, with all these tariffs, it's very important to make sure that your bond is kept sufficient. So work with your customs bond provider, your customs broker to make sure that if you do need to make an increase to your customs bond, that you do so. You don't want to wait for customs to issue a notice and then have to quickly replace the bond. So something very important to keep an eye on. With that, I think, Tanya, I think we can stop for questions, but hopefully that was helpful.
That was really, really helpful. Thank you so much, Kate. I love how you go through this information and really help us to structurize it and make some sense out of it. I would like to ask everybody who is still on the line here to share your comments in the chat. Perhaps share your main insight or key takeaways that you heard today or an aha moment that you had. And we have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, and I think you might have answered that before, but I think it's a good one to ask again. So, if tariff change while a shipment in transit, what tariff rate applies? The tariff of the moment of shipment or the entry?
So it's a great question because this is varied depending on the different tariffs. So like I mentioned originally, there was the in-transit exemption with the IEEPA tariffs that is not in place for the new IEEPA tariffs and for the Section 232. So what this depends on is the date of entry and import in the US.
Okay.
So if when you're filing the customs entry in the US, it's the rate in effect on the date of entry, okay? And this can be generally the inbound date if you're inbounding it from a different port. But again, the customs entry has to be filed to set the rate of duty.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I see already some of those comments coming up. I see very extremely helpful and in-depth, very good presentation. So Kate, thank you again.
Welcome.
Let's see if we have any more questions. Again, if you have some questions, please add them to our Q&A. All right, so there's also, Kate, you mentioned quite a lot about the USMCA, and I just want to say to all of our attendees today that the next trade briefing will be actually on the USMCA, so make sure to register. We're going to go a little bit deeper on that particular topic. But I also wanted to say, Kate, that it was really great that you shared some of those strategies. And again, you might have heard about FTZs and bonded warehouses and duty drawback. Again, if you have questions, make sure to reach out. Reach out to Kate, reach out to us, to World Trade Center Denver. We do have a help desk request, so you can submit your question there, and we'll be able to refer as well. And Kate, what is the do you want to share your contact information so
Oh,
that
yeah.
people can reach out if they have questions? Oh, we do have actually two questions. Let me see here. Can technology and tooling fees be removed from value of product?
Regarding just like import value.
Yeah, I think that is.
Hold on one second.
Mhm.
What was the first one? The tooling and
Can technology and tooling fees
technology
be?
and tooling. Those are pretty specific valuation questions that we'd want to look into. So if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to dig into that. But that's not something I want to just give a blanket answer to. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. And then Susan, question from Susan. What was the significance of the red font or some of those? I think it was in the very first one.
Yeah. So I did that this morning actually because this was stuff that might potentially change with the news that came out this morning. So as of this morning, right, based on official news, all of those numbers are true as of today. The red ones are indicating things that I might think based on what I saw in the news this morning might change. So that was just kind of a flag to make sure that we all closely watch what's officially out in the Federal Register.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
Do we want to sh oh, yes. So we can share that link. Karen, thank you so much for putting that in. I think Kate, we can just share that
The
link
email?
where
Yeah, yeah,
people,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
can
totally fine.
share comments. All right. Well, thank you so much again,
Welcome.
Kate. Thank you for sharing your expertise. It's
Sure.
so valuable, and thank you for being member of World Trade Center Denver. Um, I also invite, if you are not member yet, please reach out, become a member, stay connected, stay informed. We're all in this together, and it is changing by the minute, and we all need to stay informed and again and learn about different strategies and how we can continue doing business and stay calm and trade on, as we say here at World Trade Center Denver. Um, with that, please register for our next one, which is going to be March 18th. We're going to dive into USMCA. And I also wanted to invite you to register for our largest conference. It is World Trade Day. We'll send information again on in the email. But this is our largest and biggest conference, so I invite all of you to attend and meet in person, and there will be more of this type of sessions there as well. With that, happy Tuesday and yeah, stay calm and trade on. Thank you,
Sounds good. Thank
everybody.
you, everybody. Take care.